It's December 19th, 2024, and this is a meeting of the Wolfeboro Budget Committee. And tonight we're going to clean up a few things on agencies and general government. We get to revisit items, library, parks and rec, and police department, and then hopefully we'll get to the warrant articles.
But first, you're going to pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States.
I'm going to do that, just a minute.
Okay, just checking. You're older now.
If you'll all join me in the pledge of allegiance, I'm going to ask Selectman Brian DeShays to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I didn't mean to jump the gun, John, but you went off quick and that scares me.
Okay, do we have any public comment? Seeing no one, we'll move on. Christie, do you have anything you want to report just before we start?
I do not. Well, I guess the town manager unexpectedly couldn't be here this evening, so I will be sitting in his place.
Thank you. Okay, let's start on agencies. Can I have Tri-County come up?
Oh, you can sit down.
You can have a seat.
Oh, thank
Make yourself comfortable. Either seat.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good
Hi, how are you?
evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Janae Smallwood. I'm the municipal coordinator for Tri-County PAC. This evening, we are allocating the request for $14,436 from the town of Wolfeboro. These expenses will help our municipalities in the town of Wolfeboro for these programs: fuel assistance, energy assistance, housing, child care, homeless 211. We also have a new program, which is a diaper program, and I have seen my flyers out here. I am she is one. I'm the director of the diaper program. This is my first time, so you guys gotta please excuse me on everything. I just wanted to sit there and say thank you again to Wolfeboro, and if you guys have any questions, I'm free to answer them.
How many people of Wolfeboro do you serve? Any idea?
Yes, I do have that, sir. My apologies. So, the total clients that we served was 322 for the total value of $277,010.47, sir.
Okay, so for $14,436, we get $277,000 in value, basically.
Can you repeat that
For
question?
$14,000, we're getting $277,000 in value of services from you folks.
That is correct, sir.
That includes oil.
The oil, our fuel assistance, energy assistance is our popular one, so that allocates for the majority of our funding. Also, we do help with the homeless, we do help with dental, single mothers, single fathers, families that are in need for help that we do.
Okay, how about a phone number if someone wants to get a hold of your group to get some help?
The phone number,
Yeah.
they will have to call, it depends on which one do they need. Like for housing, it'll be 211.
How about oil?
It'd be Tri-County CAP Energy Fuel Assistance Program.
And is that up in Tamworth?
Yes, that is, sir. Right across, next to the dental.
Okay. Any other questions? I do have a long ride ahead of you. Thank you so much for coming down. I really
Merry
appreciate it.
Christmas to everybody.
Thank you for
Happy
coming.
holidays. And thank you so very much.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
You as well.
Okay, Lake Street VNA.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for having us.
Any questions on the financials that they provided us?
No.
Can you just refresh my mind on how you differ from the VNA that we have in town?
Sure. So our primary funding sources are through annual appeal. through private donation, as well as municipal support.
Okay, because we currently also donate to the VNA, the local VNA. How are you different from them?
So we are one of your local VNAs.
This is your first time, excuse me.
This is our first
Yeah.
time requesting funding, but we've actually been a presence in Wolfeboro for a number of years.
Okay.
So you have, serving this general footprint, probably Franklin VNA, as well as Granite VNA, and the Lakes Region VNA. And you might say, well, why do we need so many VNAs? Well, first of all, I think that there's been a tremendous rise in need. All of the data around healthcare shows that people have superior health outcomes when they can receive care in the home. And we know that with decreasing hospital lengths, you have increased complexity when people are discharged from the hospital. And so being able to care for your community in their homes leads to, I think, both increased respect and dignity for a patient while they're in that vulnerable time, as well as improved health outcomes. It is, in fact, just to add a little additional color, it is a CMS regulation that all patients be offered a choice of where they receive home care and hospice care. And of the VNAs that serve you locally, we do have overlapping services in both home care and hospice. Lakes Region VNA offers skilled nursing, private duty nursing, social work, bereavement. We have grief counseling, we have PT, OT, and rehab services, as well as dedicated hospice teams with the ability to provide physician in-home care. That's something that kind of distinguishes investments that we have made. When people have made the choice to pursue hospice, and to pursue hospice in their home, it can be very challenging as the end draws closer with symptom control, terminal agitation. What Lakes Region VNA has chosen to invest in with the ability to provide that physician level service is that we can control those symptoms in the home still without needing to resort to sending those patients back to the hospital.
And you're requesting 5,000, correct?
That is correct, sir.
Any questions for Lakes Region VNA? Thanks for coming in again, appreciate it.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate the consideration. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Same to you, ladies.
Thank you.
Okay, Northern Human Services.
Safe travels.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Valita Saraselli. I'm the Behavioral Health Director at Northern Human Services. I apologize for not being here the last time around, so I thank you for letting me come tonight. For those of you that aren't familiar with Northern, we are a nonprofit community mental health center with an office located here in Wolfeboro. We offer a range of mental health services for children and adults. Our majority of our funding comes through Medicare and Medicaid, so insurance reimbursements. With that being said, not all of our services are covered through insurance, unfortunately. Specifically, our mobile crisis and our emergency services program, which is a very valuable, highly utilized program that we offer. That program runs in a deficit each year, basically due to it being staffed 24/7 with licensed clinicians and mobile crisis teams with deployment teams. As you can see from our packet that we submitted, in calendar year 2023, we served 179 uninsured or underinsured residents of the town of Wolfeboro for a total cost of $261,918. And we are requesting our level funding of $7,449. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Have any questions? Thank you again for coming in, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you, you too.
Okay, that's on agencies. General government assessing.
Todd Hayward is joining us this evening to, between him and I, answering any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, committee. My name's Todd Haywood. I own the firm Granite Hill Municipal Services, which provides you with your assessing and related matters advice. And hopefully I can answer your questions.
I'll just try to get to the page first. Under general government, it's on page 23 if you're looking for it.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
This will go well.
Casey, is you prepared to discuss the reevaluation?
I believe so. I believe Todd, between Todd and I, we may be able to.
Okay. Todd, can you just tell the public and us a little about the reevaluation process, how that's going to work, and why we have to do it?
So to start, you have to do it because it's required by the Constitution, and then RSA 75-8A also kind of codifies that. So every 5 years you have to value anew, and 2025 will be year 6. So you have to do it. It's how you fund it, I guess, is up to you. What it'll entail is, at least what we're proposing, is to verify the physical data for all the sold properties over the previous year and a half or so. And then we'll review those sales, make sure that we agree with the coding and whatnot, and try to determine what the value drivers are. But in a short answer, we'll adjust the tables in the current system to generate assessments close to the selling price of those sale properties. Once we're comfortable with that, that model, we'll apply that model to the non-sold properties in town, and you'll have your new assessments. Part of that process will be, not only will be a on-site visit to the sale properties and then ongoing analysis of what's driving the values. We'll also do a parcel-by-parcel field review, which you might hear people say that they just did a drive-by. Well, most likely we've already been to measure all the properties in town over the last 5 years. We do that annually in the cyclical reassessment or cyclical data collection, which you'll see in this budget. It's not in there for 2025. It's been about $40,000 a year, but 25, we're not going to do that portion, and we'll do this statistical update of values portion. So we'll go by each property, mostly as a quality control. Do we agree with the coding? Are we applying the parameters that we applied to the sale properties to the non-sold properties with similar conditions, so on and so forth? And then at the end, and we do have some public relations material that I routinely send out in these types of projects to kind of educate the public and hopefully ease the sticker shock, so to speak, because as we know, the values have increased quite a bit in the last 5 years. So most people will see an increase, and some will see one more than others. And that's really part of the reason why we do this, is because over time, different types of property change in value at different rates. So town may go up 50%, but not every property is going to go up 50%. Some may go up 20, some may go up 80 or more. So that's the thought, is to take everything that was statistically closed 5 years ago, and as time spreads, the assessment spread, and we want to bring everybody back into line. And that's the real reason for the reassessment, is to bring everybody back into a closer assessment range.
And you mentioned that's required by law, right?
Yes.
What happens if we don't vote for it?
I believe that there is a mechanism for that, and that might be a question for Casey to answer, because I'm not a finance expert.
So Jim had posed, the town manager had posed a question at the end of October to the Department of Revenue, asking, can we put it in the operating budget, or can we put it in a warrant article and raise and appropriate the funds, or can we put it in a warrant article and use unassigned fund balance? And then ask the question about no means no. Their answer is a little lengthy, so bear with me. At this point, given that Wolfeboro is required to perform a revaluation in 2025, I would suggest a special warrant article. This way, needed context can be provided for that specific appropriation, either in the language of the article or when discussing the article in public. In terms of our involvement, DRA is generally responsible for ensuring that revals are performed with statutory guidelines. The primary guideline being the 5-year reval requirement in RSA 75-8A. It has not been our practice to try to force municipalities to perform revals based on the statistics like assessment level or median ratio. We simply want to ensure that every town establishes new assessed values at least once in every 5 years. In cases where the town is unable to unwillingly to comply with the 5-year reval requirement, DRA will seek relief from the Board of Tax and Land Appeals, who has the authority to enter a court order requiring the town to perform the reval. Regarding the question of no means no, DRA cannot force a municipality to make an appropriation with money raised from taxation or any other source for this purpose, and we do not intend to. Ultimately, a town and its voters will decide how to best to address the responsibility to perform a reval. But the responsibility itself is unavoidable. It may be prudent to address the rigidity of the reval requirements somewhere in the language of the warrant article to ensure that the voters have a full understanding of the impact of their vote. And then he goes on to say we may want to establish a capital reserve fund in the future. This is an email to the town manager from Adam Denokier, who's the DRA Assistant Director of Municipal and Property Division. That was pretty long-winded.
Thank you, Casey.
Does it answer your question?
It does mine. Just another quick question for me. I get my tax bill after reevaluation. I go, geez, this is wrong. No way my house is worth this. What do I do then? Is there appeal process or something? Or?
So we'll try to iron a lot of that out with informal hearings prior to setting the tax rate. So we'll have a week or two, maybe, depending on the response, to discuss the new assessments with people and make any adjustments that we may have missed or overlooked. Or I usually take the approach that you know your property better than I do. So here's what I know. Now, please tell me what I'm missing. So. But in the event that things aren't satisfied during that process before the tax rate, the taxpayers all have until the following March 1st to appeal it through abatement at the local level. So there's a 4 months appeal period basically after the tax bill comes out.
And if it fails there's another avenue that you go with, isn't there?
If you're not satisfied with the outcome at the local level, you can either go to Superior Court or the Board of Tax and Land Appeals, but not both.
And why would you choose one or the other?
Personal preference.
Okay. Because we have our family has a house on an island in Wolfeboro, no services whatsoever, a lot of waterfront, not buildable, it's swampy and so on, but we get taxed the same way as if we're on Winnipesaukee. So I fight this battle every time. It has been a losing battle because we're still taxed as much as Shorefront on Winnipesaukee or Wentworth or something like that. So if you were me, where would you go?
The simplest place to go, and they probably the general consensus is most user friendly because you generally don't need an attorney or an expert to represent yourself before the Board of Tax and Land Appeals. And that tribunal will ask questions of their own, so it's a little more informal, and this is what they do regularly, so they're knowledgeable on the subject as well. So that over my years, they said if you have a good case, you go to the Board of Tax and Land Appeals. If your case isn't so good, you might go to Superior Court.
Okay, so this is a property that goes back to the 30s, has an outhouse, no running water, no cellar basement, no nothing, and yet we still get taxed. So you think Tax and Land Appeals would be a good way to go?
Well, you would want to appeal at the local level first. You have to.
Okay.
But that would be up to you.
Thanks.
Any other questions for John?
Yes, I do, John. Well, you guys pretty much did my presentation for me I was planning on tonight. I had intended, and I still might do it, to move the funding mechanism from a special warrant article or separate warrant article to the operating budget. And I spoke with an attorney at New Hampshire Municipal Services, Stephen Buckley, who's been doing this for a very long time. And he does not like the warrant article idea at all. And he referred me to RSA 3210:10 1E, where if a separate warrant article to appropriate funds fails, then no amount of money may be transferred to or spent for the purpose of the separate warrant article. No means no. So, now this is in conflict with what I've been hearing. So, I really don't want to take a chance on losing the funding for this reval. Now, something I don't think you mentioned, Todd, we're at 52% of full market value. That was announced at the Board of Selectmen meeting on November 20th, 52%. And if I'm correct, if I've read all this material correctly, we need to be between 90 and 110% of full market value. Full market value, you referenced it being a qualified transaction, arm's length transaction, no parents to child, or whatever the case may be. So I have a conflict here. I have an RSA telling me that if the voters vote the warrant article down, we have no place to find the money. So what do we do?
I agree with you that there's a conflict in what I have been told by DRA and what you've been told by Steve Buckley. I don't know how to resolve that.
May I?
Yeah.
Oh, please.
Excuse me, Linda, you have to...
Yeah, I'm just, if we put it in the operating budget, and the operating budget goes into default, we lose it also, am I correct? Because it's a one-time appropriation?
Correct.
Well, you do lose it, but the Board of Selectmen can move money around, but this is a purpose you never had before. You know what I mean? And so, yes, you run into that purpose too. I mean, it's not like if police loses some money, you could take it from fire to give to police. That's the Selectmen's, authority to do that. But we've never had reval, we don't have a reval budget, so it's not like you can move more in there. So.
I'd like to speak to that, John.
Go ahead.
Linda, it's my understanding that if we're in a default budget, the town manager and the select board can move money around within the budget.
But she is saying
I just-
one-time appropriations get pulled out in a default budget.
Okay, so,
That's what this is. That's
all
why
right,
I'm
so
making it
we also have $3 million in our,
We have no authority. You have to have an appropriation to spend. We're caught in the same trap that you're concerned about with the warrant article. We get into the same trap in the operating budget if it's a default budget.
wouldn't be considered a contingency in that regard?
Mike, you wanted to talk, I'm sorry.
What Casey touched on it briefly with that email from the DRA, and they based the process would work, as I understand it, has been worked multiple times over the years, is if you didn't do the revaluation next year, the DRA can't order you to do a reevaluation, but they can petition the Board of Tax and Land Appeals, who then can order you to do it. And if that happens, you lose all control of who does it, and you may not find anybody to do it. And in that case, the avenue of last resort is the Department of Revenue would have to do it. That's happening in the North Country right now.
How often do you see that happen?
And not often, but it's going to happen more and more because there's not enough assessors to do the work. And that's the problem in the North Country. I've seen it in the past where and I'm not a finance expert, but I have seen that in a case like this, you would go to the DRA to request permission to use your unreserved fund balance, and then they would most
Okay.
times grant that permission.
Okay, so,
John, how was this funded the last time around?
I can answer that. In 2020, it was funded by a warrant article that passed. However, the warrant article was funded by the undesignated fund balance, so our surplus paid for it, as a, to entice people to vote yes on it. 2010, 2015, it was in the operating budget. And a question I was going to ask you is, I believe the line is 4152 that you create when you put it in, but anyhow, is there an issue or a problem with putting the revaluation in assessing 380 or 390 line? So it's an outside service, and can we do it that way?
I don't think that's good practice. DRA has a line item that says revaluation. I mean, if we're putting it in the assessing, I mean, I can't speak to what happened in the past, but if you look at the form, you know, you put things in the proper spot, it says revaluation, and that's why it goes there, and not in the assessing.
Well, we're at 52%. We need to be at 90%, so we really need to get this done.
I 100% agree, and we disagree, and I think you know that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that on a standalone warrant article, just like some others that we're going to have, it's going to be up to us, the town, you, the budget committee, the people, to really push for these. And, you know, we really got to market it, sell it, tell them we have to do this. You know what I mean? If it's buried in the operating budget and the difference between default and operating gets, you know, larger and larger, and it fails, I mean, we didn't have enough time. I mean, it's buried in a $3 million, you know.
I see a conflict of rules with this, and
I agree.
it probably should be fixed by legislative relief. So we have, on one side, we have mandatory spending, and mandatory spending is supposed to stay in a default budget. On the other side, we have a default budget rule in budgeting laws that new lines come out of an operating budget. So I think that's got to be corrected. In any event, I've decided to leave this alone, so thank you.
Tom?
I have a question of the select board. What is their demeanor on this, and where do they feel we should have this money funded? And
I believe we're going with a warrant article. And that's what the board is looking at. If the warrant article doesn't pass, the state is going to ask us to, and we're going to have to find the money one way or another. We don't have an option. I was just looking again and trying to find out if there's another option if we go into default budget, where we would find the funds.
To Bob's point, how it was funded once, at least in the past, with surplus. Do we have that surplus that we
Yeah,
can?
we did it with an unassigned fund balance, but when we ran into issues with the pop whale and the board said, we aren't going to use unassigned fund balances for warrant articles, you know, because of where we got trapped. So right now, the board felt it was better to keep its promise. And in reality, when we get to March, if we have 230 in unassigned fund balance, we'll wipe it out at that point.
Well, yeah, we have over 3 million now.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I feel
One correction, not in March, when we go to set the
Oh,
tax
excuse
rate.
me. No,
When we go to set the
excuse
tax rate, we could also, the Board of Selectmen can utilize any of their unassigned fund balance to buy down the tax rate. So this is going to cost, this warrant article that they've put forward is going to cost, you know, $230,000 is what they're putting in the warrant article. But in September, when we go to do estimated revenues, right before the tax rate is set, they can use some of the unassigned fund balance.
Okay, I'm good with that. Thank you.
Was there any discussion about establishing a capital reserve fund?
Yes, there was. In 2020, Jim Pinio brought it up that it'd be a good idea to do that, and Stephen Buckley think that's a great idea. And you know, you put away 50 grand a year, then this is not such a big bite. I believe John mentioned to me, Moulton Borough, I think, does it a little differently. I think they do 1/5 of their town every year. So I don't know if that's not correct.
Well, Matt?
Yeah.
So that's the cyclical. That's what we do here too. They measure the houses, and so they're trying to get through the entire town over a 5-year period.
So, yeah, okay, it's a little, I read it a little differently on their website, but Moulton Borough is assessed at $6.3 billion, and we come in at a little $2.476 billion. So, and I wouldn't be surprised if we're up well over 3 billion when we're done with a reval. So, but the perfect way to go would be a capital reserve account, yes.
So establishing a capital reserve fund was on the preliminary warrant article list for the Board of Selectmen, but it didn't go too far because they figured don't do it in the year of the revaluation. So maybe next year they'll entertain that. I believe we agree it's a good idea, but this isn't the year for it.
And I think in the next 2 years, when we have to fund the ambulance service, we have to be careful.
Yeah.
And I think once we get through that, then we can. But I think there's just so much you can ask for.
Yeah, I get it. One other question. You had mentioned that to develop your model, you look back at the last year and a half of active sales. And do you incorporate the data from your 5-year cyclical program?
Yeah, so
Because a year and a half isn't a very big picture.
well, the confusion, I think, is that when we do the cyclicals, so we're verifying the physical data, the dimensions of the house, the size of the garage, numbers of bedrooms, bathrooms, et cetera, which isn't going to change, but you do find things that aren't exactly the way we have them listed. So it's useful, but we're not changing the values statewide, or townwide, I'm sorry. I think I lost my train of thought, I'm sorry.
I have one more question, John, please. I never asked in the assessing office, and I was curious as to how often, because I assume that Linda might be doing all of the communication with the state DRA in reporting recent home sales, and I was wondering how often that is done.
Oh, we do a ratio study every year, so that's how they get the 52%, is they take the sales that occur from October 1st of the previous year, 6 months before the April 1st date of assessment, and 6 months after to stabilize it. So they look at the sales that occurred, we have to say if it's qualified, and we have to give them the assessed value. They compare the selling price to the assessed value and come up with that ratio. And back to your question, it came back to me, we want it to be close to the date of assessment as possible, which would be April 1st of 2025. And in this town, a year and a half would probably give you about 300 sales, which is a pretty good sample. If you didn't have that many sales, we would go back probably 2 years. And if really didn't have that many, which it's not going to be a problem here, we might go back further. I would think it's good practice on the commercial properties, because there aren't that many sales, maybe go back 4 years. And those properties don't fluctuate in value as much as residential anyways, but hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, and the cyclical, because you were saying, does the cyclical, how does that play into it? And I could be wrong, but say somebody has a shed that pops up, or a pool that pops up, or a garage that all of a sudden magically appears beside their house. Those get picked up in the cyclical, and then that gets updated so that when they do the reevaluation and they put in the formula to update everything, that house is getting updated correctly instead of not as it would have been if they hadn't picked it up during a cyclical.
So the adage is good data, good assessments, bad data, bad assessments. So we would be using that data to answer your question in the long form here, but we'll be looking at sales to establish new values for those features, square footage or whatever.
Okay, any questions for Todd?
Nope.
Thank you for coming in, Todd, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Up to Todd.
So you usually trip through with the department 100s, 200s, you don't want to do that?
We haven't done that with him yet?
No.
You guys
Sorry.
think? Okay.
It goes quick, sorry.
Okay.
I just don't want to come back to
You're
it.
out.
Okay, 100 series, which is the hourly wages and overtime. Any questions? 200 series? $300 series?
So here, I'll just say, you take out the cyclical data collection in the year of reval, so we're down $40,880 in line 384.
Okay, 400. 500, 600, and 800. This budget is 123,252. It's down 22.71%. Thank you, Todd.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Have a fabulous holiday season.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
You too, thank you very much.
Okay, library to revisit.
Back again. My assumption is that you wanted a little bit of backup, so I will provide that for you. This is the invoice and the proposal from the cleaning service here in the library. It's a very simple invoice that they send me every week. The proposal kind of outlines what they do for us on an monthly basis. Peter?
Oh, appreciate it.
We opted not to do the deep clean due to the fact of the priciness of what that would cost us. But yet again, it does cost us $210 per day for 3 days a week. They come in 3 days a week, excuse me, and it's $210 per day. We have 5 bathrooms, 5 conference rooms, somewhat close to what a school would be to clean due to the fact that we have a lot of children here. We average about 235 people per day.
Okay, any questions?
No.
No. Thank you very much.
That's it? Okay,
Yep,
great,
very
thank
good.
you.
Thank you. Parks and Rec?
Thank you, Allison. You're almost challenging me on that.
I'm sorry?
You're almost as bad as me.
Thank you.
I think we wanted to talk to you about the tennis court. Is that what your understanding is?
Yep, tennis was the first one, so
Fireworks.
we did secure 3 quotes. One of them was 96,000, around 96,000. One of them was 85,000. And the last one we got was 46,500. I will say, out of those 3 quotes, the one for 46,500, they actually came out and saw our tennis courts. The other 2, we sent them pictures and dimensions and all that, and that's how we obtained those quotes. So this is significantly lower, but they did come out to our physical courts and check them.
They got 5 stars on Yelp, 46,500. Any complaints or anything? Or?
I don't. So they're out of Vermont. Molten Borough uses it at Advantage Tennis. Yep.
Yeah, Molten Borough had used them, and that was the other rec department that had redone their courts, so that's why we.
You don't see any issues with you dropping your calc request down to 46,000 or 47,000?
I mean, the only thing it is it probably is gonna, since we got 2 other quotes, they didn't see the courts, maybe if they come out and quote them and they see them, maybe it could be less.
We're kind of past that avenue right now.
Right, yeah.
Can you live with the 46?
Yeah.
Tom?
I thought one of your points was that, looking at it as a layman, it didn't look like these things were in dire need. But are you willing to relinquish that?
I'll relinquish it. I'm not that expert. I've learned that they pop up and do some other things.
Yeah, and we did try to get a quote from the companies to see if it was okay to wait a year. Unfortunately, nobody got back to us on that, so.
Also, is there any major difference in terms of taking out, removing the current blacktop digging down, more aggregate, what, was there any big difference between materials and?
They wouldn't be pulling out the existing asphalt that's there. They basically come in, they grind, clean all the cracks, and then they fill them. They lay over this coating over the top, and then
Oh, I
that's
see.
what they paint over it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I know we're saying tennis and pickleball courts, but this also includes the basketball court, just so you know.
Thank you for getting a couple more quotes, Christine, I appreciate it. Just trying to find that request in the CIP.
Yeah, what page is that?
That's what I'm looking at, yeah. Just trying to find it.
On page 33, sorry for the delay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
How likely do you think you'll hear from those other two contractors?
What do you mean hear from them? We did
As far as
get,
coming out to see them, you said they possibly
yeah, I mean,
might.
at this point, they probably won't come out until the
Okay.
spring. Yeah.
So that's okay.
So we sent them pictures, gave them the dimensions, and that's how they quoted us.
Okay.
And you still would be going out to bid if this was awarded.
Correct.
And given they'd all have a chance to rebid in the spring or summer or
Right.
when you attend, right?
Yes.
Okay, can I get a motion to reduce this to 47,000?
I'll make that motion.
And a second?
Second.
And discussion. You okay with that, Christine?
Yes.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Linda, you guys okay with that over there in the select board? Okay. Okay, the motion is to reduce the capital line request from 85,000 to 47,000. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Christine, thank you so much for going and getting those other estimates of bids or whatever.
You're welcome.
I
I did have another
Yes,
revisit.
fine.
so
The fireworks.
All the
yes.
fireworks, yeah.
Yeah, so I received an email from the fireworks company that we do have a contract with. Their insurance is going up 20%, so they have no control over that. So, which means our bill will go up 20%. So I just asked that we revisit that to, I think it's $3,500 more.
If you'd like to entertain the motion, and I guess you didn't really say, but they wrote us a nice letter, even though you're contractually in. It's going up 20% across the board for all communities, and mostly because of their insurance has gone up that 20%. It's in Department 45832 for $14,500. It would be an increase of $2,900.
Whereabouts is this in the budget? Is it in the general
Patriotic
government?
purposes.
Patriotic purposes in Parks and Rec.
Catherine, what's the top number? 17 something?
17,400 is what it needs to go to.
Okay.
It was 14,500.
Thank you.
Page 41.
So it's under Park and Rec, page 41?
Yeah. Parks and Rec, but it has its own department called Fireworks. It's the only line item there. I believe you did a 3-year contract.
Yes, and this is the last.
This is the last year,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, they have to pass this increase on.
So what's the final number?
17,400 we're estimating. That's the 20% markup.
And what's the page again, please? Catherine?
41.
Thank you. Written memory.
So that's closer to a 20 or 25% increase overall.
Well,
If they're
technically,
going, church is going up 20%.
Well, no, it went up 500 already because we were in a contract that it would go up $500 every year. So it was supposed to be 14,500 already.
But what you're looking at, the 13,000 from 24 was a default, so she had to cover the difference there. It was already 14,000, now it went up to 14,500, and now we need it to go up to 17,400.
This is the 4th of July fireworks, right?
Correct.
Okay, can a motion to increase line 30 fireworks to 17,400?
So moved. Second. For America.
Any more discussion?
Nope.
Seeing none, all those in favor of increasing that to 17,400, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Christine.
God bless America.
You betcha.
For revisits. Give them more.
Yes, I know.
Yes. I think she's all done
All good?
for revisits.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll be here when you're ready for the other stuff.
Police department, please.
Is this for capital outlay or just for police department?
What's this for, Joe?
The revisit discussions all answer your questions. The revisits are to talk about SRO and then police vehicles. I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you for bringing your own chair.
Good evening, all.
Do they? No, I could give it to you. No, I don't give it. Yeah, no. That's low level.
Good evening, gentlemen. You all set? Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
I believe on your revisit list, you've had 3 different things for the police. Police department outside services, vehicle maintenance, review amount expended at year end, and revisit justification of funding request, per Leanne's notes.
I believe the outside services, we're gonna wait till the very end of the year. It's only the 19th.
Okay?
They wanted to wait till the end of the year to review the amount expended,
Okay.
so we still have a little bit of time.
So you're putting that one on hold.
Yes.
Okay, so the next revisit item is police department. Is there currently an SRO at the school through the department?
Currently, there are 2 SROs assigned to the school.
What page are we on in the budget?
There was a discussion.
Oh, discussion, okay. Beg your pardon.
I'm sorry, there probably is a page in here, but it was a general discussion that was being had.
Okay. There are 2 SROs assigned to the school, as I'm sure you all know. However, recently, we have pulled one of the SROs to assist with training of one of the 2 new officers that is about to hit the road on their own, so that SRO will be returning to the school. I think the total amount was, what, a month?
Yeah, maybe, yeah, just about that.
About 4 weeks. That arrangement was
It's
worked
Christmas
out.
break in there.
Yeah, it's through the Christmas break, so there's some that isn't affected anyway. But that was following a conversation with the school superintendent and telling her what our issues were with people power and how many folks we had with the requisite knowledge and skill set that could train new officers. So the quick answer is we have 1 in there now, and we'll be back to 2 shortly.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Tom, you met, I guess, with the captain today?
Yes.
Yesterday, okay, do you want to discuss that with the captain and see what?
Well, I think you were going to talk to personnel.
Which
15
district?
position.
Okay, we, as the committee is aware, and Jim's not here to speak on it, but we are in the midst of negotiations with the employees union, the PBA, and during that ongoing conversation and the looking back at the numbers and trying to figure out where things are going to fit and that type of thing, it became apparent to us that there is a 15th position that has been budgeted. I asked the question why it's there, because I came to the belief that there were 14 sworn positions on the police department. In conversation, I figured out that, or I was told that that 15th position was a position that would have had to been funded and then would be reimbursed. That is not a direction that we'll be going in, at least for the time being, certainly not during my tenure. So I have, with the captain, we worked out what that means to the budget and removing that position. And I can give you those numbers now if you'd like to hear those.
Yeah, that'd be great if you could.
The total from the police side, because there would be a police impact and a town impact due to health benefits and that type of thing. The total amount would be $112,737. Now, this is, and I'll give you that number again.
Okay.
This is $99,734. That's $99,734, which is that 15th officer. Now, what we did was, and as again you're aware, there have been a couple of resignations recently of officers that have been here for a number of years. They would not have a starting rate. They would have the rate of pay commensurate to whatever rank they've accomplished or longevity. So we took that position and figured it out instead of the low position. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's what we did, was we took the highest, I guess, valued by monetary valued officer and used those numbers. So the 15th officer, for lack of a better term, is $99,734. That's that officer that left with benefits.
Can I just stop you for a second, Chief?
Sure.
Casey, do you have the lines that we'll have to adjust and
Yeah.
everything? Okay, sorry, Chief, thank you.
I'm pulling it together now.
Okay.
Then with the other officers' departures, we took off whatever differences would follow suit. We certainly wanted to leave one available to be able to pay for a certified officer should one come and want to come to work for Wolfeboro. We didn't want to leave ourselves in trouble. But the next number would be $8,216. That's the difference of the hourly rate of one of those officers. There was 3 total. One of those officers' hourly rate to what it would be starting as a certified officer. We took off longevity of one of the officers who was getting longevity. We took off holiday pay for that 15th officer. That's $3,437. I'm sorry, the longevity was $250 if you're doing a column. The holiday pay for that 15th officer, again, is $3,437. And the holiday difference of the other officer is $380. So the only other number added to that is something that was in the budget called phone stipend. Now, this was a stipend that was given to both the chief and the captain for getting phone calls on our personal cell phones. I myself don't like getting business calls on my personal cell phone, and it opens that phone up to possible issues with subpoenas and that type of thing. My wife would be very upset if she can't get a hold of me because my phone's in the evidence room. There's no need of that expenditure. The town of Wolfeboro provides both the captain and myself with the phone to use for businesses, so we've also reduced the budget by $720. And that's the yearly rate of the phone stipend. So those numbers added together should come out to $112,737. The guy to my right is more a mathematician than I am, but I think I got the numbers correct. That revises the police bottom line in my math to $1,918,910.
Do you have the total increase?
That's the total savings. Does anybody need that number again?
Yes, please, Chief.
Okay, $1,918,910.
Thank you.
The town would then remove, certainly after KC reviews it, but the numbers we have affecting town lines number 210, 219, 215, and 260, which is health benefits, that type of thing, is $46,260. Does anybody need that again?
Casey, you got all that stuff?
No, not yet.
She
but
will.
I'm-
She knows where we live.
Yeah, we'll wait.
I'm trying to
we'll
keep
do the
up with them,
motion.
but I'm not there yet. But looking over their shoulders and coming up with it.
I have a question. Once you do that, Casey, will we get an updated sheet?
I usually don't update those sheets.
So you just tell us what it is?
Right,
When the time comes?
yeah, we're on
Okay.
the top level now,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I can tell you in Jim's absence that we are still in negotiation. That number is still going to happen.
With the union.
I'm sorry?
With the union?
Yes. And we do have another meeting scheduled before the end of the year.
You're not getting a 40% increase like the congressman tried to put through, right?
That would be sweet.
I
No,
know.
we're not.
That would be ludicrous, is what it is.
If you say so, sir.
I definitely think so.
So would that change the payroll lines?
Yes.
Yeah, some of the 100
It'll-
series, yes.
But that'll be in a warrant article, that won't be in the...
I'm sorry.
When we present our budget to the warrant, to the town, that won't have that built into it.
I was kind of not paying attention, but if you're talking about the cost items for the contract that is being negotiating, yes, it will be in a separate warrant article.
Would that affect any of the other pay?
Does what affect any other pay?
An increase in the union employees?
Anything would be in that warrant article that has to
Does that
statutory.
affect the non-union pay
Non-union.
corresponding?
No.
Yeah, they-
Non-union has had no increases at this point, and the town manager has not put any in until negotiations are complete.
And so would those come in after the negotiations?
I believe so, yes, at the town manager's discretion. Not I believe so, it would, yes.
But it won't show up in the budget until if the warrant article passes. The raises and all that other, then that'll kick into the...
Nope, nope, so whatever they negotiate, not saying it would be the same, the town manager will then come to you and say, put such and such into the budget, in the operating budget for non-union raises. If their contract passes, I'm talking police union or ASME union, ours has to be, if the operating budget passes, they're independent of each other.
Just non-union people, though.
Non-union is the only one in the operating budget, that's correct.
And I believe he wants us to get 40%. Did you read that?
No.
Sure, but I'm sure you said the bar.
I'm sure you said that. Replay that tape, will you?
Play that again.
Somebody's got to tape it.
Chief, I want to thank you, the captain, and the commissioners. I think this is the first time that we've got a decrease in the police budget. I appreciate you guys stepping up and finding the money and being fair and reasonable with what you requested. I really appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Commission too.
Question.
Yes, sir.
You've got two just out of the academy. Once those positions are filled and up to speed, how many open positions do you have, if any?
We have a total of 5.
There'll be, after these two or
Yes.
on the road, you'll
We have
still
currently,
five
we have currently 9 certified police officers. We do have 2 that are in training. They're due to be done with training shortly. I mean, they're at the end of that process.
within the 9.
That are part of that 9, because they are certified
So-
police officers.
So you've got
We just hold them longer than many other departments do, because we want to be very sure that they're ready to go, as I'm sure you recall. That leaves us with 5 positions to bring us to 14. I don't want to jinx us, but we are in the middle of conversing with 4 people right now who are interested in the positions, and we have interviews happening as we speak. So that's what we've put our priorities on recently.
What metric do you use for how many police officers a town like Wolfeboro requires, needs, would like to have?
Metric is very difficult.
Or some kind of measurement, you know?
And a lot of it, as you know, I haven't been here very long.
No.
So I walk into, all right, how many officers are there? That's what I believe as a manager, an ongoing conversation that you have to have. I've never met a police chief that told me, we have far too many cops here. But is that possible? It certainly is. The wondrous thing about the town of Wolfeboro is it's so different based on the season, and I know I'm preaching to the choir. Where I find us fortunate, if that can be used, is that we're having a rebuild during this season and not in July. As far as the number of police officers, I rely on the studies, the structure, the conversations that police chiefs and the Board of Selectmen and the Police Commission have had over the years to get them to that number. I have been involved with Wolfeboro now for a couple of years. I've never seen them full strength. And I've always seen overtime. I am a police chief that hates overtime. I don't like paying it on a normal basis. I don't like scheduling overtime. It's not something that I enjoy seeing or signing off on. Not that I don't want the officers to make a little extra money. I don't want to exhaust my police officers, and I don't want to burn them out. I want them fresh, and I want them speaking to our customers, our trustees, on a daily basis in a positive way, not an exhausted way. And I certainly don't want a tragic accident to happen because they're tired. So with the 2 officers that we have patrolling the schools during the school year and the 2 administrators, that brings that number down quickly. When we're full strength, this town really does require the services of full-time detective. I look forward to that again because that will take the load off of some of the other veteran police officers who should be on the road instead of doing detective work. So the number 14 I think is appropriate. I certainly wouldn't be, and I don't see myself forecasted to ask for any additional full-time officers during my tenure, and I would be surprised if that happens again for quite a number of years. I think the town's population, the part-time population in the summer months, that type of thing, is appropriately handled with the number of officers that are here and the equipment. If we can keep up the equipment and that conversation's coming, I think it's appropriate. Like I said, the change in attitude or busyness, for lack of a better term, is oftentimes fixed by those SROs because they come out of the school when school's done, and that's the time when we get busy again and out on the streets, as you well know. So those 2 officers adding in kind of is almost like we designed it that way. So I hope that answers your question.
Just need some insight. Yep, thanks.
Thank you, Chief. Casey, how you making out?
I'm good. So there's probably about 12 different line items he's attached, so I think I'm going to put it in a bulk motion, if you agree.
Yeah.
So if you would like to entertain a motion to decrease police department 42100 in the amount of $112,737, 112,737. If you'd like to make that motion, that's part 1, and then there's a part 2.
Okay, can I get someone to make that motion?
I'll make it.
Second.
Second. Okay, the motion is to reduce line 42100 police by $112,737. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And the benefits that go along with those changes, would somebody entertain a motion to decrease personal administration, Department 41550, a decrease of $46,260.
So moved.
One more time in the amount.
$46,260.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, the motion is to reduce line 41550 by $46,260. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question? What
Yeah.
was the revenue that we received for the 15th officer?
That would be the officer's salary.
And it wasn't a full year this year, so.
Okay. Now we jump into the warrant articles.
Yeah, so, do you want to just start at the beginning and we dismiss these guys, or how would you like to handle it?
Yeah, to be fair, we might as well dismiss them. because
All
we're
right,
out.
you guys
I'm
can
sorry.
listen, but, oh, that's all. Sorry, I asked, I tried. He's the boss.
Can we put some kind of numbers in each case here, A, B, C, D, or something, so we can know what we're talking about?
I'm sorry,
I might
what?
have the numbers.
Thank you very much. So these will, we're gonna, I guess, talk about two different documents. A one-page document that's green and blue. This is a summary up until the actions taken by the Board of Selectmen last night. The blue items are still pending, but they are part of your list and need to be updated. Numbers will be applied to them as soon as the warrant articles are numbered. So, Jim put these warrant articles are currently, as the cover says, in order by department. He figured like the first two are electric. I don't see anybody here from electric, but he did electric. And then there was a couple library ones. And so that is how he put these forward to the Board of Selectmen and how he put them forward to you.
Okay, we'll start with Melody and Keniston Island reconstruction.
Okay, so I think Jim usually reads this out loud. Is that what you'd like me to do?
Yeah, we can read it.
It would be more for the public. I don't need
please.
to read it, but,
Go for it.
oh, sorry, okay. Melody and Keniston Island reconstruction. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $525,000 for the purpose of reconstruction over the overhead electrical distribution system on Melody and Keniston Islands, which supplies power to approximately 40 customers. This project will include new pole structures, 15 kV rated conduits, insulators, transformers, service conductors, and associated trimming to reduce outages and safety concerns at these locations. This appropriation is non-lapsing pursuant to RSA 32.7 and shall lapse on December 31st, 2026, or on completion of the project, whichever occurs first. This project will be paid by the Municipal Electric Enterprise Fund and will not result in any increase to the tax rate. It was recommended by the Board of Selectmen on a 5-0 vote.
Okay, this has nothing to do with the taxes. It's all paid by the user. Any questions?
Nope.
Okay, let's move on.
All right, the next one is the Armory interior ceiling, which is also from the Electric Department. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 for the purpose of repairing the interior ceiling within the Electric Department garage, which consists of an open cathedral-style roof with batting insulation covered in tie-back construction wrap. The tie-back is affixed to wood strapping which are held in place between the horizontal structure steel purlins. Age has resulted in the deterioration of the wrap and caused the strapping and installation to dislodge and fall in places. The proposal is to apply metal sheathing style steel roofing panels with associated support structures over the tie-back material and insulation to provide a code-compliant, stable, and aesthetically presentable finish. This appropriation is non-lapsing pursuant to RSA 32.7 and shall lapse on December 31st, 2026, or upon completion of the project, whichever occurs first. This project will be paid for by the Municipal Electric Enterprise Fund and will not result in any increase in the tax rate. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen by a vote of 5-0.
Any questions? Okay, nothing to do with the tax rate, you sir? Next
right.
one.
Library solar project, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $173,381 for the purpose of installing solar array and associated equipment on the Wolfeboro Public Library, with the sum of $52,014 from taxation, with the balance of funds for the project to be funded by the acceptance of at least $121,367 from grants and donations and rebates. This was recommended by the Board of Selectmen by a vote of 5-0.
How about some questions on this one?
It's the 121,367, is that already been raised, or?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the 52,000, we have already received a grant, but it's a federal grant, and not until we spend the money can we get it, and we just need to make sure we get that money.
So we have to raise and appropriate the $52,014, but we probably will get the revenue to offset the expense.
And you got a change of administration, so you don't know. So
How much is the grant?
the grant is $52,014.
Right there. And but the good thing about this is we have a little over $11,000 bill for the electricity here. So when you install that solar, the first year that it's in, the first full calendar year, $11,000 saved. So even if there was something really bad happened, we didn't get the grant because, like Linda said, the changing of the guard in Washington, it wouldn't matter. We would still have a 4 3/4 year break even, where the solar after that period of time would be paying and saving us tens of thousands of dollars for years.
So, the solar would cover all the electric for this building?
Correct.
Any extra?
That I'm not 100% certain.
They
exactly
said
enough?
it's designed for this building.
Correct.
Okay.
Whether there'll be more, there was no discussion. You know, because it depends upon the amount of sun you have in a year can vary.
So, the tax rate goes up, the money comes in, how do we rebate what the taxpayers paid?
If you don't use the money,
It just goes to unassigned fund balance. So you have to raise it. Unfortunately, it's a timing issue. It's only 2 cents on the tax rate. We raise it, but it becomes another thing where the selectmen can use it to, another $50,000 to decrease the tax bill when we do the revised estimate before tax rate is set.
Okay, we all set on the lovely solar project?
And the last thing, Nancy Hirschberg has been the driver for this. She is very astute in solar. This is not something that was half-baked and put together. She's spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, and this is her area of expertise. I trust her.
and I do too, she does a good job and has that knowledge.
And I guess I did not say, when reading, it is an estimated tax rate impact for 2025, 2 cents per thousand assessed valuation.
How will this affect the generator that was installed?
I don't think it'll affect it at all. I think that it probably will. Interesting.
Would it-
No, because when,
Would it,
no, because when, if the power goes out and there's enough solar to run the building, okay. If the power goes out and you have
A cloudy day.
4 days of a snowstorm and you're covered, you still have no electricity here. The long-term plan that I think the Energy Committee is looking at is getting a battery storage device for this building too, that then, Matt, you could use the extra from the solar to power the battery, and then the battery would work as a generator for here and be able to feed back into the grid.
So what powers the building at night then, without the battery?
The solar.
At night?
Yeah.
No, solar, if
The
it's
solar-
gonna power anything, it's gotta have a battery. Otherwise, it's creating
I
it,
think what's
that's
gonna
it.
happen is
It goes into the grid.
Into the
And you
grid,
get credits.
you get credits.
And then when you're not using, so
It's
it's,
still on the grid, so that will
Yes.
help you.
That's,
And so when the
Yes.
power goes out, that's when
That's
you
where I
use
was
it.
getting
Yep, yep.
So then the electric company
anything that's solar.
powers at night.
Right.
yeah.
and
Because
they
we've
turn it
already
back,
said
we're
so
putting
much
more in
energy.
during the day.
Yeah, we're putting energy in there, and that solar is just mixed into the whole piece, and then and it covers you. But if you had, remember we had an ice storm for 5 days? With the ice storm for 5 days and no clouds, and the electricity is out in the whole town, this is still out without a generator.
Okay, guess we're all set on solar. Municipal reevaluation.
The next one is the municipal reevaluation, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $230,000 to meet our constitutional and statutory requirement to perform a municipal revaluation assessment to ensure assessments are at full and true value at least every 5th year. Per State of New Hampshire law, RSA 75A, revaluation was last performed in 2020. The estimated tax impact for 2025 is 9 cents per 1,000 assessed valuation. The Board of Selectmen approved this 5-0.
I would like to have this be a little bit more specific so that people understand what RSA 75:8A is, that we're required to do this by law.
So you are asking the Board of Selectmen to reword this with more specifics about the RSA?
Yes.
You could actually put the verbiage in of the RSA. I mean, so people can see that, yeah, you gotta do this.
Does anyone have any questions or suggestions to make this more understandable for the voters?
I agree with you, John. I just don't know how to do it, but it's, when you put out a warrant article, you're giving people a choice to say yes or no, and if the warrant article goes down, if they vote no, their expectation is that it's not going to be done. And here we have a situation where we have to do it anyway, so they really don't have a choice. So I agree with John that maybe this could be beefed up a little bit. At least when we talk about it, we can emphasize the fact that it really has to be done.
We just have to be careful because we can't.
Yeah, I get you, yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else on the evaluation?
So I'm putting this as a revisit, correct?
Yes, please.
So just so you know, we would have to pare it down because that 75A is 100 words. So if we stick another 100 words in this warrant article, it's going to be extremely long. So we can probably look at it and pare it down and add more information.
This must be done by state law. This is required to be done by state law,
Otherwise it'd be a violation.
Yeah, we'll go back.
something like that. Thank you, guys.
And we'll work on it.
Thank you.
Okay, we don't have anything to do with the,
Yeah, the next one is increase in income limits for elderly tax exemptions. 2 things here. The Board of Selectmen was looking for more information, so they're going to have to revisit this at a different meeting, and also it is a non-monetary.
okay? Abenaki Area Capital Reserve funding.
To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $32,000 to be added to the existing Abenaki Capital Reserve Fund, which as of December 31st, 2024, had a balance of $31,769. These funds are under the custody of the trustees of trust funds with selectmen designated as agents to expend. Estimated tax rate impact for 2025 is 1 cent per 1,000 assessed valuation. It was recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0.
Any questions on that one? Okay, just we move on, Casey.
All right, tree removal and replacement expendable trust funding. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 to be placed in the existing tree removal and replacement expendable trust fund, which as of December 31st, 2024, had a balance of $54,386. Funds are under the custody of the trustees of the trust fund, with the selectmen designated as agents to expend. The estimated tax rate for 2025 is 1 cent per thousand assessed valuation, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0.
Okay. Any questions on that one? Tree removal and replacement. Okay.
All right. The next one, ambulance service non-binding referendum. This is a non-money item, but I guess with your, if you'd like, I'd like to read it because it's kind of laying out the,
Sure.
Did you say yes?
Yeah.
Okay. An ambulance service non-binding referendum. Are you in favor of the town of Wolfeboro establishing a fire department-based 911 ambulance service to become effective January 1, 2027, as outlined below? The program will authorize funding through separate warrant articles in 25 and 2026. All funds outlined will be above and beyond the current fire department budget and staffing as proposed in the 2025, it should say, budget. Sorry. Expenses for 2025 are $816,223 as outlined in warrant article 2025 warrant article number, and it hasn't been assigned, but it is the next one in your packet. Expenses for 2026 are estimated at $1,402,905, which includes staffing costs as outlined in 2025 warrant article XX, funding to purchase a new fully equipped ambulance, hiring 3 additional employees, which includes benefits and required equipment. These actions will place the town of Wolfeboro in position to provide fire department-based 911 ambulance services effective January 1, 2027. Expenses for 2027 are estimated at $1,105,559. These funds, combined with existing fire department budgets and staffing, will provide the town of Wolfeboro with 3 management employees, 18 full-time employees, and 2 fully operational ambulances. Further, effective January 1, 2027, the town of Wolfeboro will no longer contract with a privately operated ambulance service, which in 2025 is budgeted $770,000. The board motioned to put this here last evening, but they would like it in front of the money article, which is next.
Just a quick question, that 18 full-time, does that include the new one that's in the budget now?
Yes.
Any other questions?
18 full-time, you said?
Yeah, they mentioned 18 full-time, and I was wondering if that included well, actually 21, that included the new person that's in this year's budget.
Yeah, so they're asking for a person that they asked for last year and didn't get because of default. It is in the budget for a half year for a firefighter, and that's the 3 that they were going after like 3-4 years ago.
Okay, thank you.
1 per year.
Couple quick
Go ahead,
questions. I'll try to keep it quick.
Okay.
When you look at this, as the voters look at this looks big. And actually, the thing that really makes it look bigger is the ambulance service that you currently have. So it's not, exactly. Why not stick with it? Which we know that's not going to stay at that number. The other question I have, and I've had this conversation with the chief, that estimated expense for 2027, is that accounting the revenue stream? We don't know what that is, so that could be even
When
less.
I read the MRI report, and in it said that we'll have a revenue stream in 2017, but it will not be at full strength until you have a year.
2027, but it wouldn't be here anyways, right? Because this is only expenses. We are hoping for a potential offset. In a full year, we're hoping on $350,000. we might not be ramped up, because we're just starting 1/1 to get a whole 350,000 in 2027. However, it wouldn't be in these numbers anyways. There's only one side of the...
Correct, and I understand that, and I think most people in this room understand it, but the people that we need to understand it, that's the hard sell. And that's...
Go ahead, you're the...
So what I hear you saying is you would like us to take out the $777,000 that are, and just say that the amount we're paying for students will no longer be in the budget.
I would, yes, that's very good, and I think, because if we have it like this, I think they're just gonna go, holy moly, let's stay with the ambulance service, and we know where that's going, so it'll be 1.5 million.
So we have asked legal counsel, this wording came up, we want to have full transparency. I appreciate that.
Yep.
It's up to the board, so I'm taking back to the board, which they're here, but you just want to take out, which is budgeted at 777.
Well, there's,
Go ahead, Bob.
Robert, I disagree with you, and we discussed this on the committee at length, over and over and over again, and despite how it looks, we feel that we have to let people know that for a couple of years, this whole operation is going to be expensive. But in the long run, starting in 2027, we should be competitive, if not a little cheaper than private ambulance service companies. Private ambulance service companies, as we know, many have failed around the state, and the numbers we're getting and the numbers we've been told to sustain a 2-ambulance private company would be at least $1.4 million. So I think it's got to stay in myself. I mean, we've got to meet on the 7th again,
Yeah.
But
If I could add on to that. So we've had an ad hoc committee that's been working since July on this stuff. We've taken a little time off. We're picking it back up in January. We're taking it as an action item to, get the word out there and explain it and, not just rely on this one little document. But any feedback, I think, is well. And maybe we just put in revenue. Would that change your mind?
there's two ways to do it. You either take it out, or can you show what the projections for 2026 and 27 would be to stay with the outside service?
Good point, because you're doing it on projection of the upcoming cost. Could you also put it like projection of 777, what it might cost?
We do know what
I mean, that's going to be an eye-opener.
We do know what it's going to cost for the next 2 years, so they're already in a contract. It's after that what happens. And we can't, you know what I mean? You don't want to, in 5 years, this could be $2 million or,
What's 26 going to be then?
26 is...
795.
It's 3.6% more. Yeah, 4% is the max. We do have the fire chief here, and we also have the vice chair of the ad hoc committee, if you'd like some other people to be discussing this. We are all part of the ad hoc committee, as Mr. Tuffle was.
This is not binding, so no matter what happens, you don't have to, selectmen don't have to agree with it or whatever, right?
The Board of Selectmen are going to put it on the ballot with a yes or no. It's non-binding, yes, but the Board of Selectmen is looking for direction and wants to be transparent that the next article is not the be-all, end-all, is the...
Right.
I'll leave it to the board, whatever they want to decide. Linda came up with a possibility. I leave it to the board, however they want.
And the 4% would be 808.
But none of those really tell the story, because Stewart's told us they aren't going to go on. We're not going to keep on getting that, and when we went out to regular bids, those numbers are the ones that are eye-opening.
And I don't know if anybody's seen it, but I sent it to John. I know I sent him an email. Conway now is looking into an ambulance service. Their fire department, so it's growing fast.
Well, it's already 70%. We had the number it was in July or August, and there's backup information at the town hall. in July of August of last year, it was 72%, is that right, Bob? 72?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
72% of all communities in the state of New Hampshire are either service their own fire base or they're contracting with a town next to them. And it's growing, it's not going the other way. I mean, the writing is on the wall that this is the way we have to go. If we want to have 2 fully staffed ambulance for our community, this is what we're going to have to do.
Stewards told us they don't want to do it. That's the other piece.
But I think by way of example, to not sell it, but to demonstrate the alternative of not doing our own, is get a projection for 27 from anybody of what it would cost. And, you know, if it's $1.2 million, the voters look at it and say, oh, okay, you know, we're making up the difference here.
I don't know if we can, I don't know if we will find an ambulance company that will give us a quote going out to 2027.
We went out to bid.
Maybe an estimate?
We went out to bid, and the chief and the committee, we asked again, and they said, all it's going to do is go up to what it was before, to the bids we didn't even take.
If we have to do it, then why do a referendum?
Because we're trying to tell, you vote for 816,000 this year. Next year, I'm going to ask you for 1.4, and let them, I prefer to be open and honest and tell the whole story,
Okay,
and let
so
them
if
see it.
But if it fails,
If this year fails?
if this referendum fails,
This referendum is non-binding. It says right up there, non-binding.
and so you're still gonna do it.
No, the next warrant article
You'll see.
is 1 year, which is what we're asking them to do. But if we just asked them that, and they didn't have an understanding of the other years where this thing's gonna go. I think we owe it to them.
Chief, if I might, I'm referring to the ad hoc committee's report. Well, first of all, point of order, Justin Brown is the vice chair of the ad hoc committee. Chairman, Dr. Stolarski, wasn't able to make it tonight. Just to having pointed out.
Thanks for all the work you did, Justin, I appreciate it.
In the ad hoc committee report, I would point out, based on just these comments, the 2 responses to the RFP last year included numbers for 2027. One, it was 1.6 million, the other was 983,000. So to give you some leeway. I can only tell you that it was a verbal conversation, but I talked to both of them and said, if the town chose to go out to another RFP, would you respond? And the answer was, we most likely would, but you're insane if you think it's going to be any cheaper. I just throw that out there for what it's worth.
I'm just thinking weaving that into this would be eye-opening for the voter to understand why we really want to go this way, other than the fact that with Stewart's is going to disappear.
But then you're just putting another big number on the ballot, right? So the idea is for this committee to go out and pound the dirt. I mean, right? I mean, we're going to sell it, we're going to advertise, we're going to talk about it, we're going to make the voters know, hopefully, so that when they walk in, they don't have any questions, is the goal.
Okay. If you got any meeting of 3 or 4 people who wants a presentation, we'll be happy to show up.
Okay, can we move on to fire-based ambulance service?
Sure, we'll just stay here. All right, so this is the monetary item, fire-based ambulance service, to raise and appropriate $816,223 to establish a fire-based ambulance service for the town of Wolfeboro. Authorize the Board of Selectmen to apply for, obtain, and accept federal, state, and/or other aid, grants, and donations, if any, which may be available for said project, that may reduce the appropriate sum of $816,223, and to comply with all laws applicable, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to take any other actions or to pass any other vote relative thereto, and to authorize the town manager to sign any relating documents. This plan is to transition away from the current contracted ambulance service. The first year of the plan is hire deputy chief paramedic, with all benefits as of April 1st, $124,785. Hire 3 firefighter EMS personnel as of July 1st, $228,605. Operating expenses for the above 4 new hires, $93,833. Purchase a vehicle for the deputy chief paramedic, $75,000. Purchase a fully equipped used ambulance, $294,000. The estimated tax rate impact for 2025 is 33 cents per thousand. This was recommended by the Board of Selectmen by a vote of 5-0.
Any questions?
I got a question.
Go ahead.
Has there been any significant numbers tossed out as far as the revenue side of the accounts here?
So we met with the current provider. He gave us some statistics. We ran our own numbers. Conservatively, we believe when we're up and fully running, we'll have $350,000 to offset the $1.1 million in 2027, which brings us back pretty close to what we're paying for ambulance services right now. So we're calling that almost a break-even position at that point.
And that's not including that there will be escalation for those years too?
Well, there'll be escalation costs, and it'll be up to the Board of Selectmen to decide, how much the rates are going to be and come up with how aggressive or not aggressive we are in collections, so. But I guess insurance it's not a great business anymore. Everybody wants to get out of ambulance billing. Some people believe that it should be a complete municipality expense, but.
There's costs involved in the billing process too, so we're talking more about hiring.
The revenue numbers that are included in this are net of any contracted billing service.
Yeah, we would not be able to take this in-house, take this on in-house, and it's a standard practice to do it to a billing collection agency, and they take some number, 4, 5, 6% of what they collect. But that would be another whole bid process that we'd go out to once this was, running and in place.
What is the life of the ambulance?
For a town our size, with the number of calls we do, we project for a new ambulance to run it for 10 years. The idea being to go onto a rotation. That ambulance would be first due for 5 years. We'd rotate with a new one, move the original one to second due, and roughly a 5-year rotation.
And is there I guess there's an ongoing cost every year to keep it?
Yeah, there is maintenance reflected in the budget numbers.
Okay, we all set? Let's move on.
That was it.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Merry Christmas.
Okay, police replacement vehicles.
Police replacement vehicles, come on back, bring your chair. I will read, police replacement vehicles 2. To see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $125,274 for the purpose of purchasing 2 police vehicles and for the installation of ancillary vehicle equipment with $13,000 from the police detail revolving fund created by Article 23 in 2006, which has accumulated from special details, with the remaining balance of $112,274 to come from taxation. The estimated tax rate impact is 4 cents per 100,000 assessed valuation. This was recommended by the Board of Selectmen by a vote of 5-0. Not part of the warrant article, just for information only. The current revolving fund balance is $15,981.70, and it was decided to leave about $2,000 in there. If this number grossly changes by deliberative session, we could change it or leave it, but that would be up to the powers that be.
Thank you, Chief.
Everybody loves saying that. I do.
You do too. Maybe something after
Maybe.
Chief, for the 125-274, are we getting away from the hybrids?
Yes.
Going back to gas, strictly gas?
That would be my recommendation.
Thank you, sir.
Quickly, let me just kind of navigate through this handout I gave you, just so you understand what I've done here. We had a short conversation last time we were together about hours and that type of thing. Ford Motor Company was nice enough to actually put that on their display. You know, those of you who have one, or a General Motors product, I believe, did the same thing. You'll find that information if you go through all those helpful little things that they have. It tells you how your car's operating. One of them is hours on your vehicle, hours that your engine's been idling. In 2020, Ford Motor Company added something to that package, and that's idle time and then running time. That's why you have something called idle on 3 of those things. Those are all I believe, the hybrids. The other hours were the hours that are showing, but as engine time. And obviously, engine time would also include when you're actually moving the vehicle. So I didn't want to duplicate the information, meaning if I take the hours, say, for example, on car 2, it says 14,197 hours. If you apply that by the 33 miles that Ford Motor Research tells you to do, that brings you to an incredibly high number. But then I realized, well, I haven't reduced the 150,399 miles that are on the car. And that's what that number next to it called the total adjust is after I've reduced the mileage and its actual idle time compared to it. So we have both the mileage hours as well as the idle hours. To answer your question, John, about the hybrid, I've done a lot of research on hybrid cruisers. I've owned a hybrid car myself in the past. I found it great because I was getting 55 miles to the gallon. I thought that was awesome. But I wondered if it was really a police cruiser. And I had that question presented to me in a former agency. We opted against it for a variety of different reasons. It wasn't as much of a savings as we were kind of hoping it would be with regard to the type of usage a police car gets compared to your car or my car. The idle time being one of the biggest killers of cruisers and taxis. Actually, New York City was really helpful in the hybrid arena because they bought a bunch of them and now they're replacing a bunch of them. Because the amount of time that these hybrid vehicles, these taxis were sitting, because as you know, once you start, you don't shut that thing off, much like a police car in most jurisdictions. That battery is operating longer than it's supposed to. And in fact, a lot of manufacturers tell you don't idle your hybrid longer than 10 minutes. For those of you who've had hybrids or have them now, you realize that the little helpful graphs and everything else on your instrument panel shows you when your battery is charging, or when you take your foot off the gas and you see that you're charging. When that car is just sitting there, it's not using gasoline, but it is using battery. And in this kind of field, that's tough on a vehicle. There are many different hybrids out there. My research is not yet done on them. It's quite expansive, and everybody has an opinion, so you got to go by your personal opinions of cars and try to get to the meat and potatoes of it. But all that, just coming down to a quick answer to John, is no, I don't think it's a good idea. What I am trying to do is reduce the amount of time the cars are idling anyway. As a young police officer, I was yelled at a lot for leaving my car running, and because I didn't want to be cold. and you lock the cars and you secure it and everything else, and you leave it running. And sometimes you got to do it. And some of you at the table, I'm preaching to the choir. The lights are going, you're at a crash scene or what have you, the car's going to be running. But there are other times, like parked outside the PD or something, when you go in to get a cup of coffee, they have to shut the cars off. And that's just a management issue. Now all that said, I'll get into the document. As you'll notice, there are 4 line cars, it being plate number 2, 3, 9, and 10 that are over 100,000 miles. Those are the top cars to be concerned with, but you'll also notice replacement date. And there are 3 cars that show a replacement date of 2025, with one of those cars being 2026. And the reason why we made that decision was we had conversation with Ben from the Highway Department as well as our own folks and how this car is going. Car 10, if you may recall, was the vehicle, and is still the vehicle that's operated pretty solely by Mike Strock. Mike Strock had the K-9 unit for the time that we had a K-9 in Wolfeboro. He was the sole driver, and a lot of those miles happened going to and from training with the dog and going out of town, going to Concord or going to the seacoast and that type of thing. It's not as hard miles as the other 100,000 plus cars. So that can wait. It's not costing us as much per mile as the other 3 are. Now, we have gone all over the place with how to replace cars. It's a good sized fleet. Is it too many? I don't honestly believe it is. Judging by what we use cars for in Wolfeboro, I think it's an appropriate number. That said, how do you replace these things? The problem with any department's fleet, and I don't care if it's a 1-officer town with 1 car or it's New York City. Fleet management is never easy. It always relies on a plan. Linda and I had a long conversation about you gotta have a plan, and we are both in full agreement. You do. You have to have a replacement schedule. You have to stick with the replacement schedule. That doesn't happen when you have a default budget. That doesn't happen when people are having a hard time that year and they just vote no on everything because they just can't spend the money. The problem with that is, and we understand how that goes, but the problem is it screws up your replacement schedule. So then you get trouble. I had some conversations with the captain and a few other folks about, well, how does Wolfeboro replace their cars? And I was told by several folks that the budget committee would like to see us do leases, and that we never do leases. And then I reviewed the sheet and I said, well, yeah, we do. The cars that we're trying to replace were all leased in 2016. How did that work out? My experience with cruiser leases is it really had no effect on me at all as a police chief. That's up to folks like the person to my left. That's more their problem than my own. I need a car. I need it to be dependable. I need that car to get that officer to that call and deal with whatever that call is. That's the bottom line for me. And I don't even want to simplify it, but it pretty much is that. That said, how do we get into a system? We had countless meetings with Jim Piniello, of which he never bought us lunch, and we figured out that we need to...
You didn't expect lunch, did you?
Well,
come on.
Hope. But we got into a program that was like, well, we had the original one was like, okay, let's get 3 cars, and then next year we do this, or the year after we do that, and over time, we'll have the right number of cars. The other plan was just lease 5 cars, and then in 5 years, lease 5 cars, and then in 5 years, lease 5 cars, and there's your plan. Leasing 5 cars is a big ask. Would the department be on the straight and narrow with their cruisers? Sure, but it's a big ask. especially with the total number of dollars at the end of the warrants. We met with the selectmen, and the warrant article you see before you is one that was hammered out during that meeting, day before yesterday. It will not replace 3, but it'll replace 2, and then another one next year, and try to do that 1 a year thing and just try to get ahead of it. Will we have high mileage cars? Without a doubt. Will we have to be a little bit more careful, cautious, maybe creative with what we use our cars for, and maybe the officers used to using car 4 may have to go to car 6 for a while, or go back to 8. That's the program I'm used to doing, is you keep your eye on the mileage and how much it's costing you, and then you have some officers that'll put 80 miles on a car to shift, and other officers will maybe do 25, because they're working a couple of cases and they're talking to people more than they're driving. I'd like to see the mileage per shift at around an average of 5 to 6 miles per hour. That's 50 to 60 miles per 10-hour shift. I think that's appropriate for this town, because I want officers out of the car walking. So between that and doing follow-up investigations, I think over time we're gonna be okay. It's just gonna take a few years to get there. I think that this is probably the most appropriate, and it stings less than the other options that we came up with. But if you, with the positive feelings that we have towards the folks that are coming in for the jobs, I believe you're going to see a full-strength police department very soon. I'm hopeful of that. I'm not a hire the next pulse through the door kind of police chief. That person has to fit to the community, has to know the community, has to get by a 3-panel interview team, of which neither of us are involved in, but there is a citizen involved. And once they get past that, then we keep going, and they have to pass the PT and, the dance. These folks have to fit. We're having really good fortune recently in the conversations that we've had with some folks that are interested in this job. We're going to need to put them in a car so they can get places. And I think that's all I have as a preliminary, if you may inquire.
I got a question for you, Chief. For you, it doesn't make any difference whether lease or purchase. And you pointed to Casey that would be her job, her purview as far as like cost. Is there a difference between lease and purchase? Does anybody have is it
I think the biggest,
is it 10% more to lease, or is it 10% less, or give me some?
It's more expensive to lease.
More expensive to lease.
And I would say that was one of the biggest issues for the board was the 5.99% APR. And you are paying 10 grand more for that car.
That's why we went away from the lease years ago, was because the interest. Because
generally, leasing pretty much is a wash whether you buy a vehicle or a lease, because if you're leasing it, it's maintained properly, but they do all that kind of stuff, whereas if it's your own, unless it's a warranty, you're taking care of that expense. So
I think if memory serves, I think when our illustrious chairman was stopping cars, they were given 1.2% APR on leases. Those days are long gone.
So it's
that 6%, I think, equated to about 10 grand more per car.
Okay.
How much is each cruise going to cost us? About 48 grand.
It's 46 to 48,000 plus upfit. 17,000. We're going to try to review the equipment, see what equipment we can use again and keep using.
Yeah.
And there's going to obviously be some equipment we just can't keep using.
Okay. Do you wash your cars every day at the town garage, or every other day, or
when they're dirty? They get washed.
Okay. Does the town garage have a undercarriage spray?
No, we have a program with a car wash in town that does the undercarriage.
Good.
So we kind of insist that they keep the undersides as clean as possible.
John.
Yes, sir.
You had me laughing a little bit because we had to put 50 miles on the car in an 8-hour shift. And on the midnight shift, if we didn't do much moving around, we found ourselves doing laps on the Long Island Expressway towards the end of the shift.
I can remember guys jacking cars up.
So, yeah, I get what you're saying, but they were pretty strict about that.
I mean, you can sit on the Long Island Expressway for 5
Yeah,
hours and only 10 miles.
This was 5 o'clock in the morning, so it was quite empty.
Okay.
Any other questions about the replacement vehicles? Okay, move on.
Purchase police body cameras. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $108,196 to purchase police body cameras for all active officers. The Board of Selectmen apply for, obtain, and accept federal, state, and/or other aid, grants, and donations, if any, which may be available for said project that may reduce the sum of $108,196, and to comply with all laws applicable to said purchase, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to take any other actions or to pass any other vote relative thereto, and to authorize the town manager to sign any relating documents. This appropriation is non-lapsing pursuant to RSA 32(7) and shall lapse on December 31st, 2026, or upon completion of the project, whichever occurs first. This appropriation will come from taxation. Estimated tax rate impact is 4 cents per thousand assessed valuation. It was recommended by the Board of Selectmen by a vote of 5-0.
Okay. How many units are we getting?
16.
16. And make?
That's Axon, and it's Axon 4. Just to give you a quick little story about how this came to be. One of the things I was kind of surprised about upon arriving here in Wolfeboro was the fact that there was no body cams. This is the age of accountability. This is the age of being as transparent as we can. And it's also the age that we protect our police officers against false accusations, as well as protect the citizens against bad behavior. It checks all the boxes. The big thing is the expense. Now, in 2017, when these started to hit the streets, as it were, there was a lot of conversations and a lot of committees and a lot of subcommittees and et cetera about them. The biggest problem, and the reason why my previous employer didn't want them at that time, was storage costs and redaction. The storage costs were, at the time, I believe, we estimated to be 2 to 3 times more than the cost of the cameras themselves. We were looking at buying multi-terabyte computers just to store the data. And then there was the redaction issue. State really hadn't caught up with what do we do with this, and I'm sure John can speak to that as far as the House goes, but there was some consternation about where are we recording people? Where are we allowed to record people? Where do they have privacy, and then the privacy rights issue? Some agencies jumped on board right away to get the cameras and regretted it due to the expenses that came that they didn't see coming. I know of an agency that actually gave back all their stuff and said, we just don't want it. That, coupled with the fact that the early body cams by other companies were malfunctioning. And you know as well as I do, they'll malfunction at the worst possible moment. And then that brings question as to, why didn't your camera work at that point? So we all kind of waited. That has since been all addressed to my knowledge. And in fact, more and more agencies are becoming unusual for not having body cams. The storage issue was remedied by use of the cloud. The redaction is part of Axon's program. Axon has a 5-year event with the cameras so that if anything happens with the camera that needs to be upgraded, upfitted, changed, fixed, etc., that's part of the program. In fact, another chief I spoke to purchased the cameras a few years ago. They were Axon 3. Axon 4 came along, bigger, better, brighter, shinier, whistles going. They just replaced them as part of the program because they were within the 5-year window. So it's a program that's built within Axon and through evidence.com that is the site that you operate the camera with. It is my intention to have all officers in uniform wear an Axon camera, body-worn camera. And there will be very, very clear policy on how that's used, when it's reviewed. They are typically not 91A footage, so people's rights and privacy is protected even more so. You may inquire.
And we did apply and will be just waiting for a signature of the town manager for the grant. So we're waiting for that too. So that hopefully that offsets it as it mentions it.
Approximately how much?
It looks like 26,000. Because it
You're
does
not gonna
all.
You're not going to get 50, you don't think?
What it actually, when you plug it all in, into the grant that's online, it will pay for the actual Axon camera equipment and some hardware. It does not do the redaction and transcript. It won't do those. The grant doesn't. She does.
What's redaction?
What's that mean?
There's going to be some stuff that we're going to have on video that we can't.
We have to redact it.
Yeah.
Juveniles, that type of thing.
It'll transcribe the conversation the officer has with everything? Wow.
Yeah, it's come a long way.
Yeah, really.
It also will start before you turn it on.
Oh, okay.
So that's
program
that
that.
issue as well.
Yeah, we don't need anything else in the cruisers, right? No, the cruiser cameras are gone and all that stuff, or is that part of this also?
There's no dash cameras,
Okay.
and I wouldn't be suggesting or recommending those.
Okay.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Two quick questions. 16 cameras, 14 officers?
There's 14 officers, and we don't need 16, we need 15. And we have a part-time investigator who I would want a camera on.
Okay, so they'll all be wearing cameras. Next question, lifespan, I'm assuming 5 years?
5 years.
So every 5 years, we're going to go
Yep.
through this process?
Yes.
Kind of like
The nice part.
Kind of like the tasers.
Yeah, very similar, and they do have lease programs though.
Okay.
So, I'm assuming there's an annual cost associated with this, with having cameras, in addition to the cost of the camera? Storage, offsite, cloud storage, it's all included?
Yeah, it's all in there.
It's cloud storage.
It's all included, okay.
Brian?
This grant that you applied for, that covers this 108, 196, or is that
Covers
portion
26,
of it?
a portion of it. So it was basically up to 50,000. And what we're looking at, going to get based on what I put in there is about 26,000 and change. So it'll take off. So I'll take off that. So it looks like, I think it came to about 80,000.
Grammatically, the second sentence here, does that make sense to everybody?
Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
We were
It
checking.
says, Board of Selectmen apply for, obtain,
did
and
not make
accept
sense.
federal,
It's not grammatical. That's
not correct.
It's not grammatical.
It's usually cut and paste from older ones, so I will revisit the language.
Certainly a run-on sentence.
Okay.
Where's the?
It says the Board of Selectmen will apply for?
Yeah,
or
will
Will apply, for, okay.
Yeah, I think that's what's wrong there. Something got left out.
My personal feelings is these cameras are long overdue. And I think there's no single thing that's going to protect the town and the officers better than having something like this.
Okay, any more questions about the body cameras?
No.
And then we'll move on. Change to the union contract.
Yeah, the next one's the police union contract. We'll be skipping that because we're still negotiating. And the next one is, that is, I believe it, for both these departments.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming in. Appreciate it.
I do have a quick comment if I could. I don't know if it's appropriate, but I'm going to do it anyway. Because that's who I am. First of all, let me thank you again for your patience. I am very used to doing budget/selectmen at the same time, because in my previous committee, they were all the same thing. So all these different moves to budget committees, to selectmen, and these types of things, it's a learning curve for me, and I appreciate your patience in that. I would ask you, however, that if you have questions or you're confused about something, please don't hesitate to call me or stop by, or I'll even provide the coffee if that's necessary.
What about lunch?
What about 40%? I would like to get to know all of you better, not just this way, but also personally as residents of Wolfeboro. I just seem to think that I might see you in passing and we just kind of wave and we don't have any conversation. And I think that's what sets us apart from other places where there's law enforcement, where they just don't know anybody. And I'd like to please invite you all that anytime you have a question about the budget or want to know something maybe about the SROs, swing by and say hi. It's not the greatest office in the world right now, but it will be. And you'll want to come visit. So, and I also invite you all, anytime you want to tour what's happening thus far, is to get a hold of myself or Tom Zotti, and we'll be happy to walk you through. It's the best time is at 4 o'clock when all the subs race out of there like they're on fire, and then the place is ours to walk through. So please take advantage of that if you can. And thank you again.
When the building's complete,
Thank you, Commissioner.
when the building's complete, aren't you gonna have a meet and greet?
Maybe. Are you bringing lunch?
Yes.
Everything's about food. You may need that chair.
Everything is about food.
Yes, that's it. It's always about food.
And the fire chief, just stand by for a second.
Sure.
Up against the wall.
Chief, I haven't gone through all these, but I didn't see your vehicle in here.
You withdrew it at your last meeting.
Right, I think we requested the selectmen to put it in as a warrant article, and to take it out of the
Capital reserve.
They don't need a
fund.
warrant article to take it out of capital reserve if
Right.
they choose to do that.
So we took, the town manager took your advice, took it off the warrant article, and the chief had some correspondence with the town manager, and it will be brought to the Board of Selectmen as agents to expend whether they want to do it something.
Great, thank you so much. Just wanted to check and sure you're all set.
Yep, thank you.
Town roads.
Town roads. Next year, we're gonna have to flip this somehow, so.
We're always last, it's okay. We just,
You wanna bring
get
it?
you guys all worn down by the time we sit down, it's fine.
All right, town road upgrades. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $900,000 for the purpose of upgrading and engineering town roads and drainage systems. This appropriation is non-lapsing pursuant to RSA 32.7 and shall lapse on December 31st, 2026, or upon completion of the project, whichever occurs first. Impact to the 25 tax rate is 36 cents per thousand assessed valuation. The Board of Selectmen voted on this 5-0.
We'll eventually have a list of your projects and stuff like
I've
that.
actually got it right here, I can list them off for you if you'd like.
You guys want to know what we want to do? No. You can just give it to Leanne.
Sure. Lightning round, fantastic.
Yes, I'd like to know, but I'd like it electronically. Okay,
Yes.
send it to Leanne.
Can do.
Any big projects? Really big?
Mostly a lot of overlays, parking lots, the one down by Linda's Flowers, both parking lots at Town Hall.
Okay.
We're gonna resurface those, Union Street, that nasty section of Union Street at the beginning. Maplewood subdivision that we rebuilt a couple years ago needs an overlay. Point Sewell needs to be rebuilt. Parts of Sewell Road are gonna get rebuilt to get ready for overlay following year. We're gonna do some preservation down on Middleton Road, Beach Pond Road.
So that 900,000 is enough for you to do all your projects for the year?
So what I'll do on this list, John, is I'll send it to Leanne, and it's got the road along with the estimate per road and how it's broken down and how I get to the 900.
So if someone gets up and wants to add another $400,000 to the road,
I'll spend it.
That's not what I was looking for.
He was quick for that.
Denied.
You want me to tell him no?
No.
He's just gonna sing
Be
it directly
conscious
to
of
his
that.
house, so he can pay right up to it.
I have, how that would work, for example, like how it worked last year was, last year being a little different because we got it reduced. So I already had a master list of what I wanted to do. What would happen, on the off chance that would happen this year, is I have next year's list already in the works. And what I would do is just, I would bite off some of those to keep going.
Okay. Any other questions about town road upgrades? Okay, Public Works vehicle equipment replacement, capital reserve.
To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $380,000 to be added to the existing Public Works Vehicles and Equipment Capital Reserve Fund, which as of December 31st, 2024, has a balance of $178,691. These funds are under the custody of the trustees of the trust fund, with selectmen designated as agents to expend. The estimated tax rate for 2025 is 15 cents per thousand. Assessed valuation recommended by the board, a vote of 5-0.
Any questions about this one? Okay, let's move on.
River Street rebuild and water main replacement.
I'm sorry.
May I?
Yes, certainly.
I also,
I'm stopping.
that went quicker than I expected. Also have my master sheet for my 10-year replacement plan, which I'll send to Leanne along with that. So
Oh,
you
that'd
guys
be
can
great.
see
Thank you.
the $4.5 million we have to replace over the next decade and how it's broken.
I got a question for you, Steve.
Yes, sir.
You're laboring this issue, but an underspray to have at the town garage, so trucks and everything come back from salt. They've got it at the car wash. Can't we get one at the town garage?
So what I purchased when I got here was a unit for that. So we have it that hooks up to the steam cleaners and the pressure washers that does roll underneath the trucks.
Okay.
We don't have a wash bay per se where we can get underneath and do it like some of the bigger municipalities have, but we do have that. It's an attachment to our stuff that we use.
Okay.
All set.
You done?
Okay.
Oh. River Street rebuild and water main replacement. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $350,000 for the purpose of upgrading River Street. Funds shall be utilized for engineering fees, stormwater drainage system, and water main upgrades, the repair of sewer lines, and rebuilding River Street. $150,000 from the Water Enterprise Fund shall be for the purpose of engineering and replacement of vintage water mains which service River Street. $200,000 from general taxation shall be for the purpose of engineering and making repairs to existing sewer line in River Street, stormwater drainage systems, and rebuilding of River Street. This appropriation is non-lapsing pursuant to RSA 32.7 and shall lapse on December 31st, 2026, or upon completion of the project, whichever occurs first. Estimated tax rate impact 2025, 8 cents per thousand. Assessed valuation. Board of Selectmen voted 5-0 on this item.
I'm amazing how much engineering costs.
And this is actually a relatively small part of that because it's, I want to say the fee for the engineering for this one is about 38-ish. And then the rest is obviously for construction. And I do want to point out, it's not all of River Street. It is only that first section to the rail trail.
Okay.
Of that old piece that has old main. Everything from the rail trail in has already been updated with a new main and everything else. Why that beginning piece never got updated, I don't know.
So that eight cents per thousand, Casey, that's based on just the 200,000, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Any other questions on that one? Okay, let's move on.
Pressure relief valve and vault for South Main Street water tower. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 to replace the existing globe valve with a pressure relief valve and accessible vault to increase fire flow to the South Main Street zone. A new vault is needed so the valve can be accessible, serviceable, and kept out of the water table and safe. This appropriation is non-lapsing pursuant to RSA 32.7 and shall lapse on December 31st, 2026, or upon completion of the project, whichever occurs first. This project will be paid for by the Water Enterprise Fund and will not result in any increase in the tax rate. Tax rate impact 0 and was recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0.
Any questions on that one?
Yeah, who does the work?
I'm sorry?
You guys do the work?
No, we're gonna sub that out.
Okay.
Okay, water treatment plant upgrade.
To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 to continue yearly maintenance of the water treatment plant facility. This appropriation is non-lapsing pursuant to RSA 32.7 and shall lapse on December 31st, 2026, or upon completion of the project, whichever occurs first. This project will be paid for by the Water Enterprise Fund and will not result in any increase in the tax rate. Tax rate impact, 0. Board of Selectmen voted by a vote of 5-0.
Okay, seeing no questions, we'll move on.
Yes, sir. I have a
I'm
question.
sorry.
You didn't look this one.
I'm sorry, apologize.
That's okay. So, is this built into our most recent rates? That is, okay,
So-
thank you.
I am in the process of updating the rate study, which I'm hoping to have by Christmas.
Thank you.
That's not a good Christmas present.
Okay, guess we move on.
Wastewater Treatment Plant Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $175,000 to be added to the existing wastewater treatment plant capital reserve fund, which as of December 31st, 2024, has a balance of $160,188. These funds are under the custody of the trustees of the trust fund, with selectmen designated as agents to expend this capital reserve fund. This appropriation will come from taxation. The estimated tax impact of 2025 is 7 cents per thousand assessed valuation, recommended by the Board of Selectmen by a vote of 5-0.
Okay, any questions on this one? Okay, should we move on?
Evaluations and repairs of small sewer pump stations. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 to perform an evaluation to dictate the most efficient path forward for scheduled repairs, replacements, and maintenance. This appropriation is non-lapsing pursuant to RSA 32.7 and shall lapse on December 31st, 2026, or upon completion of the project, whichever occurs first. This appropriation will come from taxation. Estimated tax rate impact for 2024, 4 cents per thousand assessed valuation. The Board of Selectmen voted 5-0.
Questions? Okay, guess we can move on.
The next one is the ASME contract still being negotiated, so we can skip over that one,
Okay.
and we will revisit. The next one is, we done with you?
I'll sit for the Libby.
Yeah, you should stay.
I'll stay for
You should stay. Libby Museum Restoration. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $350,000 for the purpose of engineering to make stabilizing repairs to the museum building and to secure cost estimates for building and renovation and repairs. This appropriation is non-lapsing pursuant to RSA 32.7 and shall lapse on December 31st, 2026, or upon completion of the project, whichever occurs first. Estimated tax rate impact is 2025, 14 cents per thousand, recommended by the Board of Selectmen by a vote of 5-0. Not part of the warrant article, but the town manager wrote wordsmith, so I think there might be some discussion on words. Was that true, Brian? I believe you were asking something about purpose of engineering?
Yes, that was, it was, yeah, it was says, to see if the town will for $350,000 for the purpose of engineering to make stabilizing repairs, so it should be the purpose, yeah, for the purpose, it'd be engineering, this money is gonna be used for engineering, for stabilizing repairs, and for renovations. So it's all the pieces together, so we gotta make sure that the wording doesn't look like the purpose of engineering to make all those things, because then it looks like it's just for engineering.
So this will probably have to be a revisit, because you guys need to, even though you voted on it, you need to re-wordsmith it.
That was what we talked about last night, that's what we needed to do.
Okay, we'll move on.
He didn't put that in there, but he did write wordsmith, so.
Could I ask a quick question? Is there a capital reserve for the Libby? Is there anything there?
There was $300,000 put away for the capital reserve. For the
I
Libby.
think it's about 289,000, and then there's
From a trust fund.
78, something like in this trust fund, so when I added it all, it was about 362,000.
And that couldn't be used for this?
this is going to be on top of that. And we don't have the Turner report back, so we're kind of guessing at it. But if we don't put in enough money in now, we have to wait a year, we have nothing. So if by the time we get to the deliberative session, and we get a number and it's less, then we can just roll it.
Okay.
So just quick, my wording, if I were to change it, would say the sum of $350,000 for the purpose of engineering, comma, making stabilizing repairs to the museum building, comma, and to secure cost estimates for building renovations and repairs. It needs to say something like that so we know that it's all inclusive. This money is more than just engineer. It's to do engineer and fix what we need to fix.
Could you possibly put that in an email to myself and the town
Yes, ma'am.
manager, and then these guys can revisit it at their final review?
And the 350,000 number is just a placeholder?
No, yes, in reality, but
It
we
could be
probably
double.
we're gonna need to stabilize the building because we have the back wall that's giving way. And we're gonna need to get the collection out. And this is our best guess with the capital reserve and this amount. But I don't have a figure that somebody's given me that I can say, this is it. I'm comfortable with it.
We have a previous estimate to get the material out of the museum, all the artifacts, at $160,000, $166,000. We need to have that updated to revisit and see what it would cost. That's for removing the artifacts and storing them for 2 years was our previous quote. That's going to be updated. Jim is putting in for that update to see what that cost is now. And then that leaves us out of the almost $700,000. That leaves us $5 to fix and repair a back wall that is, according to what they say, in rough enough shape that people should not be in the building.
And then move the artifacts back.
Okay, let's move on. We don't even have the warrant article that's written yet, so let's move on. We've got a couple more to do.
We're putting this on the revisit. Yeah, I believe there's
thank
only
you.
2 more for you to look at. Public safety building final upfitting costs, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $175,000 for the purpose of final upfitting of the public safety building project, and to authorize the use of that amount from restricted fund balance for this purpose. This amount represents the interest earned on bond proceeds from the public safety building project. Estimated tax rate for 2025 is 0 per thousand assessed valuation, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0.
Okay, any questions on that one? No tax effect. Move on.
Discontinue capital reserve funds. To see if the town will vote to discontinue the following: a 2001 Parks and Rec Fossfield Building Capital Reserve Fund, approximately $373. 2001 that's when they were established. Town Office Facility Capital Reserve Fund, $208,000. 2002 Wolfeboro Public Library Public Capital Reserve Fund, $20. 2015 Abenaki Lodge Capital Reserve Fund, Build Four Season Lodge, $2,716. Said funds and accumulated interest to date of withdrawal are to be transferred to the municipality's general fund undesignated fund balance. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen by 5-0.
Questions? Okay, let's move on.
The next 2, I'm just going to read the title: Mill Street Pump Station Upgrades. This will be a bond hearing, I believe, to be scheduled on January 8th for $900,000. And then there's a construction of Christopher's Court and Jason's Way, subject to betterment assessments, also scheduled for a bond hearing on January 8th. At this time, that is all the warrant articles that I'm aware of as of last night.
Okay, thank you. Just on these 2 bond hearings, are we going to have to wait to have our meeting, public hearing until after that date?
I'm sorry?
The public hearing that we have for the budget committee, we go over everything. We're going to have to wait till after January 8th, after the bond hearing, or?
In order to have the Board of Selectmen vote on it, because that's what we're holding our public hearing.
But I believe you weren't having your public hearing till
You're having it the 8th.
the 16th. No, you're the 8th. Yours is the 16th.
16th, okay.
But, Since you brought up dates,
Right. I've already started working on it.
I have a conflict on January 2nd, 2025. You have estimated revenues, default budget, warrant articles, and approval of minutes. One, I won't be here, but two, the next available, due to the timing of the next selectmen's meeting, is not until January 8th, so I can't even bring the default budget to the selectmen until January 8th. So I was hoping to move the stuff on January 2nd down to the 9th.
So
And-
all of it, no meeting then on the 2nd?
No meeting on the 2nd.
I'm not saying that, but Leanne believes that.
I'm recommending no meeting on the 2nd, and honestly, I'm also recommending no meeting on the 7th, because that means that we're going to be calling the department heads out twice, back to back, for a final budget review, and then we're going to have warrant articles again, and there's no need for that.
Does the 7th then go to the 14th, or?
Yeah, I would recommend moving the agenda items for the 2nd and the 7th onto the 9th.
So that'll be estimated revenues, default budget. We've done the warrant articles.
Well, we have two.
Two more to do, right?
4. You'd have the 2 bonds and the 2 ask me.
Oh, right.
And the
Okay.
operating,
4.
so let's say 5.
And then the revisits.
Yeah. Which I think I only have 2. Okay,
Then we
3.
would vote on the warrant articles too?
We'll do
No,
those.
No.
Not
We
till
do
after.
those. No. We do those at the public hearing.
Yeah. And we'll also do the final budget review on the 9th.
Right.
And the 14th is still open, Kenley, yeah, on yours?
Yeah, well, I'm actually thinking of getting rid of the 23rd and moving everything up, so that we can just,
Okay, I got you.
yep,
But we have to check those dates.
I already did. I've done it tonight.
Okay.
Yep.
So what are we looking for dates? So the 14th and the
9th.
So our next meeting would be the 9th, which was on the schedule, so everybody should already have that.
Yeah.
And then the 14th, and then the 16th.
For a public hearing?
14th and 16th for public hearing, and the 9th would be a regular meeting.
And to go the other way, we're eliminating January 2nd, January 7th, and hopefully January 23rd.
And, yes, correct.
Can you send out the current number, Casey, for the budget? Do you have that?
I can send it out.
Unless you have it right now.
I do.
The difference between the selectmen's and ours.
Yep. So you have decreased the operating budget $387,625. The current operating budget with capital outlay and no warrant articles, ready? $35,984,847. I know you're going to say, could you repeat that number? 35,984,847.
And that's the total, that's including all the enterprise funds and everything. So that's not just the operating budget.
It is the operating budget of all funds.
You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying, but...
I don't know how, a better way to say it, basically.
Okay. But when they see it on the ballot, that if we were done, that would be the number they see on the ballot. So we have to look at it as one whole number.
Okay.
Tax impact for general fund operating budget is like 20 million, almost 20 million and a half. 20,471,000 is the number you seem to want to focus in on.
Right.
But you can't just call that the operating
No,
budget because you don't have all the other funds and you don't have the capital outlay.
So that's the 20,471 is the general fund then?
That's
right?
correct, but without capital outlay.
Oh, okay.
What was it last year?
We're going to 20, right?
$33,300,799.
Yeah, I mean, the one that's...
The general fund?
Just a straight general fund with the...
I'm sorry? $18,762,000.
Oh, that was the default, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
And it does seem like a big change, but there's some big ticket items that are in there, the $500,000 for the ambulance, and I don't have it in front of me, and I think it's late. If you'd like that, we can get that to you.
Yeah, just as long as we can show those, you know, where we
Yeah,
can go.
there is, somewhere on this computer, there's a walkthrough, as we like to call it, on some of the big ticket items that took us from there to there.
Okay, does anyone have anything else?
No, sir.
So I guess we won't see anybody till after the holidays.
Merry Christmas.
Everyone have a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
New Year.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Nice job, Casey.
Thanks, I appreciate it. You know, I'm gonna be singing in my sleep, you know, that, I don't even know what it is anymore. I'm gonna keep repeating that thing, you know. I'm gonna have to look at it again.
I got my head down.
This appropriation is non-lapsing and sewage. Yeah, I say that in my sleep. He's saying it, not me.
Okay, the minutes of December 5th, 2024. Does everyone have any changes? Okay, got anything, any motion concerning passing them, approval them, whatever you want to call them?
Motion to approve.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? No, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Minutes of December 10th.
I got a quick one.
Yes, sir?
Second page, John, you made a motion, and there was no second. I think I was the second.
Okay, question, the increase in retirement? Or, what's the difference?
It was moved by John McDonald to decrease fire rescue capital outlay, replace call one from, and there was no second. Down near the bottom. Yeah, I'm second.
I'm sure Bob Tucker did it.
He's gonna sleep better tonight. That's the only one we've done so far.
No, we did the fifth.
Right, so
All the paper industry traditionally.
Okay, any other changes,
I
the
wrote
one,
on it.
just adding Bob Tuffus, seconded my motion to, concerning the fire rescue vehicle. Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes as well, you gotta have a motion.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, and a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes December 10th, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. December 12th minutes, 2024, any changes?
Looks good.
Okay.
Awesome.
A motion to approve is written. Wait for it.
So moved.
And a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes of December 12th, 2024, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah. Okay, folks, have a wonderful Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you very much, guys.
Merry Christmas.
Todd being Jim.